Hello everyone, I'm Thomas and I will be presenting a deontological analysis of corporate labor rights. Specifically, we will look at how Immanuel Kant's ethical framework evaluates the use of sweatshops in global supply chains. So, the goal for this presentation is to evaluate corporate negligence of workers' rights using the lens of deontology. We are going to be focusing on a real world scenario, a corporation that operates sweatshops in Bangladesh to minimize manufacturing costs. To do this, we are going to use three key concepts: duty, the conscious, and the categorical imperative. So, before we dive into our scenario, what exactly is the ontology? The word comes from the Greek word dion, which means duty. Like other theories that judge an action by its results, deontology focuses on the rightness of the action itself. Regardless of the consequences, it stands in direct contrast to utilitarianism. Sorry. Which we started last week, and this is only where only outcomes and overall happiness matter. So, Immanuel Kant, the father of the ontology, believed that we have an inner voice or conscience that guides us through moral decisions. So he called this the categorical imperative. In this case, an imperative is a command. Categorical means it applies in every situation with no exceptions. It is an unconditional moral rule that tells us what we ought to do simply because it is the right thing to do. So now, let's present our scenario. So in our globalized economy, corporations often seek out low wage labor in developing nations like Bangladesh, Venezuela, India, and so on to maximize profit. These sweatshops are often defined by excessive working hours, unsafe environments, and wages that are below what a human needs to survive. So, from a conscience perspective, we must ask first: is this business model morally permissible, or is it just a violation of our universal duty? So now, Kant provides three ways for or three formulations to test if an action is actually moral. So the first is the formula of universality. Kant says we should only act according to rules that we will want to become a universal law. So in plain English, this means that if everyone in the world did what you are doing, will society still function with that? That's the question. So to test the sweep-shop model, we must identify the maxim or the underlying rule of the action. So here the maxim is a company may exploit vulnerable workers whenever it increases profit. So if we universalize this, like meaning, this basically means that every company exploited its workers, so in the future, the global workforce will eventually collapse or revolt. So business itself will become impossible to be maintained because the rule destroys the very system it relies on. So it is logical contradiction and therefore it's moral. Now, the second formulation is the formula of humanity. Kant argues that we must treat humanity always as an end in themselves and never merely as an meant to an end. So this is based on the idea that every rational being has intrinsic dignity and value for sure. Now let's see how this applies to sweatshops. When a corporation uses sweatshops, it is treating the workers as mermaids, essentially as tools or machines to generate profit. By failing to provide a living wage or a safe environment, the corporation is ignoring the workers' own goals, health, and survival for sure. So, because it uses people as objects for financial gain, this model fails the second formulation and violates human dignity. Now, the kingdom of ants. The third formulation is the kingdom of ends. So Kant asks us to act as if we are legislating member or like in an universal community of people who all respect each other equally. Imagine a community where everyone follows the same moral laws and respects everyone's freedom. That's what the kingdom of ends means. So, in this harmonious kingdom of ends, no rational leader or CEO will ever pass a law that allowed for their own exploitation. By operating Sweatshop, the corporation acts as if it is just above the moral law, creating a hierarchy of exploiters and exploited rather than a kingdom of equals. This absolutely is going to destroy moral harmony and is therefore immoral. It's not going to work. So now let's make a quick comparison to understand more these concepts. So, deontology versus utilitarianism. This is where deontology differs significantly from utilitarianism. So, an utilitarian might justify a sweatshop if it provides jobs to thousands and to goods millions, arguing it serves the greater good. However, a Kantian ontologist rejects this completely without any doubt. And it's because it's always wrong to violate the rights of dignity of even one person, regardless of how much happiness it brings to others, because that person is an end in themselves. Not for everyone, not equally, just an end in themselves. So to make a quick, sorry, I make to make a quick summary, the sweatshop's business model fails every test Kant provides. It cannot be made into an universal law because it treats human beings as tools or just for profit, and it disrupts the moral of community. For Kant, profit can never justify the violation of one's moral duty. So now to conclude, the ontology provides a strict moral for global business, and it obviously serves as a reminder that human rights and dignity are non-negotiable and cannot be sacrificed for corporate or social benefit. Now, as it was one of the main um, points in the rubric, the information in this presentation was drawn from our course here in Introduction to Philosophy, sorry, by Matthews and Hendricks. So thank you so much for watching.